I'm not the first person to say Superman can be kinda stale. He can be written well, but if fighting is emphasized in a story, I tend to put the book down underwhelmed. That's why I have no problem saying Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's thoughtful all-star Superman is my favorite version of the character. Their ability to ground the book in introspective moments is so thought-provoking and enjoyable, the fight scenes almost seem like a drag on the story. Superman shouldn't be destructive to be interesting. In fact, when his powers are downplayed and we see hints of self-doubt, he becomes a more believable and emotionally complex character the readers can easily relate to. Some writers have trouble making him engaging due to his immense power. But Morrison undermines his invincibility by giving him cancer, framing the series as a countdown for the character to achieve everything he can before meeting his end. Pulling the curtain back and allowing the audience to see him struggle and reflect upon his life adds emotional weight to everything he does as Clark Kent and Superman, because we can all understand what it's like to try and figure out how to best spend our time when we think we don't have enough of it.
I loved a good woman, and she loved me back. I'm tired, but I still have one more job to do.
The first cover establishes the book's contemplative tone. Instead of showing him fighting monsters or recreating the street fight from Action Comics #1, we see a calm Superman sitting on the clouds, watching Metropolis in the sunset. His body language screams comfortability. And why shouldn't it? He's the most powerful man in the world.
So used to seeing Superman in poses like this, or muscular, or snarling. And I thought if you were really someone who couldn't be hurt by anything at all, you would actually be the most laid-back guy on earth.
Relaxed imagery and simple backgrounds, coupled with the character's introspective nature, give the book's small, thoughtful moments enough weight to carry the series. This page in particular is extremely powerful, and it speaks volumes despite only having 4 sentences. A young woman, alone and on the edge, gets comforted by Superman. In this one exchange, Morrison tells the whole world, through Superman's voice, that we are all worth saving. The distance from their embrace not only makes her look small in his arms, but it also gives the panel a reflective quality. As an artist, Quitely tends to be very expressive, but here he purposefully blanks out his features, making him appear somewhat faceless. As he holds the young girl, I can't help but wonder if he considers his own mortality in this moment, spacing out and staring at nothing until his vision and mind become a blur. These personal moments reinforce the classic heroic tropes we know, but they also ground him in a realistic strength of someone with a huge burden, constantly putting others' well-being before their own.
You look thin. Are you sick?
Ma, I'm Superman.
And I'm your mother. You take better care of yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
Instead of presenting him as dependent on his strength, Morrison turned him into a Renaissance man, a curious, rational force equally willing to rely on his mind. Linked to that is Nietzsche's Übermensch, who wasn't superior for leaping over tall buildings in a single bound. Instead, he could overcome the church to develop and enforce his own values. Morrison referenced the philosopher to frame our understanding of Superman as someone worthy of praise for his values, not fists. He's not memorialized for his physique, no matter how impressive it may be. He's iconic because his relentless determination to do what's right inspires others to follow his example. We all know well-intentioned workaholics who ignore their health and focus on their goal. And that view of Superman gives his strong will a grounded believability that so many versions of the character lack.
Because everybody kept saying, you can't write a Superman story, because if he can do anything, then what conflicts are there? And I thought, well, emotional conflicts, the biggest ones, the things we all understand.
Another aspect that enhanced the character's emotional maturity was the minute differences quietly included when drawing either Clark Kent or Superman. So many comics just frustrate the hell out of me because I think everyone around Clark must be an idiot. How does this not happen all the time?
Did I ever tell you look like Superman?
No, I've never heard that before.
Huh.
Like I said, Mr. Wayne, people in Gotham need to learn.
You're
that-
Superman.
Presenting two sides of the Superman coin as noticeably different doesn't have to be hokey. It makes sense that Clark, a big old country boy used to wide open spaces, would be a bit clumsy and out of place in a tight office building in the bustling big city. Even if Clark Kent is just a persona, the creative team recognized that he's mature enough to ensure that he comes across as a unique individual and not just some Superman lookalike. When he tries to reveal his identity to Lois, she doesn't even believe him, legitimizing the apparent separation he strove so hard to produce between Clark and Superman in everyone's heads. Presenting Clark as a full character and a marker of emotional intelligence instead of just the butt of jokes and a believer in mid-American values makes the entire Superman package that much more complex. Maybe these contemplative values that made the book, and ultimately the character, so interesting, just don't translate well to film. Man of Steel tried to establish a reflective tone, full of awkward father-son moments, but ultimately destruction won out. Even in WB's animated adaptation of All-Star Superman, the character isn't handled that well. Despite the fact that so much of the dialogue is ripped straight out of the comic, the aspects that gave the story a mythic and compelling feel were overlooked. Some of the most emotional beats of the story were taken out just to add more fighting. And I get it. People watch movies for and not
Yada yada yada.
but stripping a story of its vulnerable and introspective moments ultimately makes the whole thing feel empty. We so rarely see Superman smile or think his problems through on screen, and that restriction makes him feel one-dimensional. Emotional maturity shouldn't be stripped from these characters to make them cool or edgy. It should be put front and center, so we can struggle alongside them to better understand their fears and motives as they move forward. The world's strongest man should also be the world's most interesting man. And I think a lot of Superman writers tend to overlook that. But you know what Superman always says.
Stay thirsty, my friends.
So I always do.